Good morning, everybody. I thought it would be fun today to look at coloring in a couple of different ways. And one of the stamp sets that really works well for this is the Timeless Tropical, which of course now I've completely lost the stamp set. There we go. Because we've got images that we can color and then stamp. And then we also have some open images that we can stamp and then color. So let's look at how we could do some things. Maybe these are things that you've done before, and maybe you just haven't done them for a while, or maybe these are new for you. So either way, I hope that you enjoy this. So I have some old olive paper here, and I was just going to fold that in half. We'll make 2 cards so that we can look at a couple of different techniques as far as coloring. So this was just, one 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that I've cut in half. And I'm just making 2 cards out of it. So they're the usual, they call this the A2 size card. And that fits in the specific envelopes that we have. And then I took a piece of designer series paper. This to me looks it's fabric, definitely, kind of burlappy. And I thought that this would make a really pretty front for these cards. So I'm just going to take some of my Stamp and Seal. This the new Stamp and Seal, which is our newest snail, is awesome. I find that it holds so much better than the old snail used to hold, and it's pretty easy to use. So okay, so now I've got my burlappy looking fabric on the front of the cards. I think I'll make one card they call landscape orientation this way, and one card portrait orientation or this way. Okay, so it doesn't matter which way you want to do the card. All right, so the first thing I think I'll do, and I'll do that maybe on this one, I'm just going to want to attach a piece of white on the inside because the old olive is kind of dark to try to write on. So I thought we would put some palm trees on the inside. All right, so remember, normally, of course, we stamp from a stamp pad, but remember that you don't have to do that. You can also color on the stamp with your markers. Okay, so don't use the tip of the marker, use the side. You'll wear down the tip if you try to use the tip. And I'm just going to color the palm fronds, old olive. Just look, that's one of my favorite greens. And then I'm going to color the trunk in soft suede. Okay, now, because this has had a little time to dry before we stamped it, you want to remember always, if you're stamping with markers, to huff on it. And that gives it a little bit of moisture. Okay, and then see how you get a really cool, and you didn't have to color that separately or afterwards or anything. You got a really neat image just by coloring on the stamp. And I could do the same thing with the pineapple. Again, just so you can see it one more time, where I would color one part of the stamp one color, and the other part of the stamp a different color. Okay. I'll put this on the inside of my other card, which is going to go this way. Okay, so now we've got a pineapple and the palm trees. And you see how easy that is just to color with your markers, and then just remember to huff on it to kind of reactivate the ink before you stamp it. All right, so those will be for the insides of the card. And I don't know that I want to put that inside until I stamp my greeting, so we'll do that after a minute. So I wanted to look at the hibiscus flower and all the different ways that we could color it. So to do this, I'm going to use my Stamparatus, and this is, of course, just a stamp positioner. This is the Stampin' Up! One. The first one that came out, I think, was the Misty, and then there have been Stamp Perfect, and Tim Holtz has one. You know, a lot of people have the stamp positioners, but there's a lot of benefits to using it. So often when you're going to watercolor, you're going to want to stamp in Versamark. Okay, and then you put your embossing powder on it. So before you emboss, you always want to use your little embossing buddy, and just doing that around, it takes the static off of the paper so that you don't get powder staying in places where you don't want it to stay. All right, so then you can see I've been using this a lot. I'm going to ink up my stamp with the Versamark. I'm going to stamp it here. And you're not going to be able to see that very well because it is, well, this you can see because I've already got some dye pigment ink on there. And then as soon as I stamp it, then I want to take my clear embossing powder, or no, sorry, my gold, I was going to do this with gold, my gold embossing powder. And you don't want to wait too long because the Versamark has to be sticky for the powder to stick on there. So you can see the powder has stuck. Okay. Almost did that the wrong way. So in that one, we're going to make gold, and I'll show you in a minute what that's going to look like. Try to get all the powder back out of here. And you hardly use any powder at all, and by putting it back in the thing here, of course, it makes it very economical. All right, so I want to do another one though. You know, we have clear embossing powder, we have gold and silver and white, but wonder if I wanted to make a flower in the either the mango medley or the calypso coral or some other color. All right, so I can do that, but you do absolutely stamp positioner to do this. All right, so I'm going to stamp it first in a color. So I think for this time I'm going to use the Calypso Coral. Okay, and you're going to ink up your stamp. And stamp it. And one reason I like using the stamp positioner, see how it's not real dark? I can actually stamp it a second time or a third time or however many times I need. And it's going to come out. See, it's darker, but it's stamped in exactly the same place. And you can't really do that unless you're using a stamp positioner because otherwise, of course, it's you're just getting close. You're not exact. All right, so then you would take a wipe or your stamp cleaner or whatever, and you want to clean off the stamp. I missed doing that one time, and that's why my Versamark pad now has some of the color in it, which I'll be able to get out. I'm not worried about that. Okay, so now I want to stamp this in Versamark, right exactly over the color, and then I'm going to put the clear embossing powder on it. Okay. Stamp that. And then clear embossing powder. And I don't know if you can see now, but they're both, so this is covered in the gold powder, and this one is covered in the clear powder. Now, the reason that we have to use Versamark, and you can't just emboss from your original stamp, is because all of our inks are these dye inks, water-based dye inks, and they dry almost immediately, which is the good thing about using them, because then you don't smear your projects. But it's also the bad thing, because if there's nothing there that's wet, that's sticky, then the powder doesn't have anything to hold on to. So if you were to stamp in a pigment ink that was sticky, you wouldn't have to do it twice. But to stamp with the dye ink and then the Versamark over the top and then add your powder. Now, through the magic of video, I already did these, but somehow forgot where oh no, these are the ones I just stamped. Interesting. Okay, so here they are. So here's the one in gold. So the one with the gold powder comes out like this when it's embossed. And once you heat and fix this powder, of course, it's permanent. Okay, and then the one that I did in the Calypso Coral came out like this. All right, so you can see you can't rub it or anything. It gives you a little bit of a raised surface. And the reason that people like to stamp or like to watercolor on that raised surface is it gives you a little bit of a wall, so that when you're coloring, we're going to color first time from the stamp pad where you push it and get some ink on the lid. And then I'm using my watercolor marker. I've also got a little thing of water here just for fun. And then you just pick up some of the ink on there and then just color right over it. Okay, and because, like I said, you've got those walls in there that you've made from the embossing, then the ink stays in there where it should. Okay, now watercolor is fun because if I want some areas to be darker, like let's say this is already a little bit darker, so I can just put more color on top of this and leave other areas lighter. Watercolor is very, sorry about the dings. Watercolor is very like therapeutic. I don't know, just it makes me happy. Okay, so we'll do that one. All right, so if you don't want to put the ink up from your ink pad, what else could you do? Well, you could, if you want, you could take one of these silicone sheets and you could put a drop of re-inker on there. And that will serve as your paint. Then when you use your watercolor brush, again, I'm using the Mango here on top of the Calypso Coral to give me a little bit of a darker and a kind of a contrast. Again, if you wait a minute and you go over certain areas, you will get darker and lighter shades. You want to take your time when you're doing this. Okay. If you think it's too dark, you can always blot it with your paper towel, and that takes off the color. So you really, I mean, it's very forgiving. It's a lot of fun, but you want to make sure if you're watercoloring that you're using watercolor paper. See, this is watercolor paper that I've stamped on. The regular Whisper White, or now Basic White, doesn't quite lend itself to watercolor as well. You can, but it just doesn't work as well. All right, so there we have 2 hibiscus flowers. All right, so let's say this is a piece of watercolor paper. Let's say I wanted to stamp some of these hibiscus on here. Pull this off the Stamparatus. All right, and I'm just going to stamp these in the Mango. So I'm going to show you something that you can do. Again, I am on watercolor paper here, not on regular Whisper White or Basic White. All right, and I'm going to stamp off here first once and make sure that's picking up color. It is. Okay, and I'm going to do, this one is going to go this way, so I'm going to do maybe 3 hibiscus flowers. Two. Okay, and then see, for this I'm going to kind of mask off where I have stamped so that I can stamp on top of this. Of course, I always have time figuring out, I better just put this up where it should go. This one actually goes like this. Okay. And by masking, what I'm doing is I'm blocking off this flower so that when I stamp here, it doesn't stamp over top of the one that's there. So that way you get a little bit of depth. Maybe then I'll take the other small flower that's in this stamp set, and somebody would have to tell me what kind of flower this is because I am not good with flower names. I know a few, and that's about it. Take the pineapple off there, and we'll use this one. Okay, and again, I'm going to mask off. Mask off this flower this time. And stamp a couple of these little ones. So maybe one there. One here. And one up here. Okay. Now you saw, this is going to be magic, but you saw the only thing I stamped with was our regular stamp pad. All right, so now I'm going to take, you can take either your watercolor brush, which I used before, or you can take a Wink of Stella. Use the watercolor brush first so that you know I'm telling the truth. Make sure it's all cleaned off. And I'm taking some water and I'm just going to pull this color out. Look at that, how cool this is. Because we are on watercolor paper and the ink is a water-based ink, you can just color with water. Remember those old-timey coloring books where all you had to have was water and it brought out the color? This is kind of the same thing. Now you want to make sure when you're watercoloring that you leave white spaces because that's kind of the hallmark of watercolor. You don't want to get it too wet, which is why I am dipping it in water instead of squeezing it from the barrel. See, I have water in there, but I tend to get too much water out when I do that. So I am just dipping it in the water. And it gives just such a beautiful look. Now, instead of using the water, if you would like to use your Wink of Stella, you can get exactly the same effect, but with a sparkle. Can you see the sparkle in that? So it's still pulling the color out. It's just adding that little extra glittery sparkle in there too. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. Maybe I will use a Wink of Stella on this last one. You can see the bigger area. See how, can you tell? I'll hold it up in a minute so you can see the sparkle. So whether you're using water or, now the Wink of Stella has alcohol in it. I think it's 70% isopropyl alcohol. So alcohol does work to pull out the color as well as water. For this. Okay, and again, I'm leaving some white areas. You don't want the colors all running together. I don't want them coming outside of where I've stamped, because then I don't think you get as much definition. Okay? Just wipe the tip off and set this water out of the way. All right, so let's put some cards together. All right, so we have the the one that I wanted to be this way, and I'm going to maybe add a birthday greeting on the inside, just so this one will be ready to go, except that I cannot find my block. Always that happens. I'll just grab this old one that's over here in the sake of time. And again, if I don't want to use my ink pad, I can easily use my marker to color on the stamp. So if you're ever missing a color of ink pad, but you have the marker, just make sure you're coloring on the side of it. I always huff on it. So that will be going on the inside. I'm going to move this out of the way before I dump something in it, which you know that I will do. Here's my Stampin' Seal. I did a demo for some demonstrators earlier, so my fingers were already inky today. All right, then I'm going to stick this on the front. It may not be completely dry yet, but it'll be dry enough for us to do what we need to do. All right, so I'm just going to leave a little bit of a border here. Just a little bit of color off of there. And then I have, just cut some pieces. Now I could put the pineapple on here. That would be cute. I could just put another hibiscus flower, maybe one of these, and pop it up with the leaves underneath it. Put a couple of leaves there and a hibiscus. I could put a hello. Put that on there and stick that there. Okay, so there's various ways that you could put something over top of this once you have it on there. I could even put one of these. I don't like that on there very much. I could put the aloha on there. That might be pretty. I think I will just do the, let's see. I'll put these three and my liquid glue. Now you could try putting these down with some snail or Stampin' Seal or something, but I just find for little pieces like this, it's much easier for me to just use a little bit of liquid adhesive. You could also pop them up on a dimensional. That would be cute. Okay, I'm going to leave that for a minute. I'm going to maybe pop this one here just for fun. I'll put a couple of leaves under that. I already had the birthday greeting on the inside, so I don't think on this one I'm going to put any words on the outside. Now, if you have either a take-a-pick tool or some kind of a poking tool, you can use that to help get these things off. I struggle with that a little bit sometimes, and I saw somebody using their pick for it, and I thought, gosh, what a great idea. All right, so I'll pop that one there, and I'll put the leaves under, which will give it a little bit of contrast. Go. And then I will put a couple little rhinestones on those flowers because I really like the look of that. So again, I'm taking my take-a-pick tool. Down. It's like a little piece of semi-sticky adhesive in there, helps to pick up the little pieces, but it doesn't stick to them so hard that you can't get them off. All right, so there would be the front. I love the texture of this paper. And then we've got all the watercolor and then the May Your Birthday Be Memorable. And then for the other one, here we go. I stamped the trees for the inside. So let's go ahead and put that together. We haven't just like colored for a while, you know? Okay, so on here, again, I think I might put a couple of flowers and the pineapple on this one. There we go. So I've got this flower. And which one? Maybe this flower and the pineapple. Watercolor is just, you saw how quickly you can do it, but it's just very artistic looking, I think. Could have popped one of those up too, but I didn't. Now on this you can put something behind it and punch all of those out. I prefer on this card to keep them on there. Whoops, except that I've just taken two out with my finger. Let's see how that's going to look. No, I'm going to put those back in. The magic of my video. There we go. We'll go right back in. And then on this one, you kind of bend those up a little bit, and then that will go there. I'm going to use the liquid on this one, since it's not really too solid from the back. A couple of hibiscus flowers, a pineapple, and on this one I think I will use the hello, which I messed up the first time. So if you do that, remember to turn the paper over and do it from behind. All of our paper's two-sided, ha 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 ha, like other people's isn't, but I'm using this new double punch. So it gives you the oval as well as the map that will go around that. And then this one I definitely want to pop up. I love this set. Okay, so do I want it there? Do I want it up here? I think I like it here. Except that's not really straight. It's hard to see when you've got the thing in the way here. Okay, so then I could put hello, and then this would just be, so that's a very, very tropical card. Move this out of the way. So we did a couple of things. We colored on the stamp here and here instead of using the stamp pad to ink up the stamp. We stamped in the dye ink and then just used either the Wink of Stella or the watercolor marker or watercolor pen to pull the color out. Didn't use any other color over that. We used our Stamparatus and stamped in gold and then watercolored on that, really simple. We used the Stamparatus and stamped in a color with the Versamark over top of it, and then colored and made two really quick and easy cards that I think are very artistic. So I hope that you all will try some of these techniques and that you have a great day.